for that StreamYard.
We are really live because practice makes perfect, right?
Truly, really live.
Truly alive.
Sounds like a line out of The Wizard of Oz.
Yep.
Now, I did notice in the intro provided by Brainbug, by the way. Thank you, Brainbug. There's a Batman figure, and you notice you see Midnight's image, you see a lion, you see a couple of hyenas. That makes sense. So who would Batman be?
So I think that's stupid whore energy, because yes, he has some Batman moves.
Yeah,
as we've seen. So
yeah, she has gained the respect of the entire internet, apparently.
Oh yes, definitely. So anyway, we're going to take a quick look, I think, at a video. We're going to try to do this in about a half an hour or 45 minutes that Standing and Poop did last night. And he does, 2 or 3 a day. He does these little clips. And what I would like everybody to notice is not so much the science, because he doesn't provide any, but to kind of watch the tempo of what he does and how he puts these things out, how he patches them together. Now, this is from a debate, and I don't know where the original debate is, because this Suckwad does not provide links. In his description, there's links to all his books and his papers and his merchandise store, or not his papers, but his writings, but not the papers that he references, nor is he very good at referencing videos. I'm going to try to track that all down and put it in the description. But anyway,
he changes the description. It's not the same title that would have been on the original Modern Day Debate.
Yeah. So I got to go hunt for it, and I got to try to match the image, and because I think he debated RJ about 3-4 times. But anyway, try. This is what is it? Free education, and he talks about destroying RJ and all this stuff. But it is a tempo of what he does. I've got a transcript. And he says things like, "Oh yeah, that'll be more respectful," and I just have 2 questions, and that'll turn it over to you. Or he'll say, he does this turnover thing, and he just keeps the gallop going, and he is very much a preacher, and
or a car salesman.
Or
the old was it Billy Mays, the original TV salesman?
Oh, the ShamWow salesman, yeah,
and then there was a guy named Vince.
Yeah, Vince from ShamWow.
Yeah.
Standing for Truth is very much Vince and he's got about 100 people that listen to him, regularly, and they just suck this shit up like he's got the science. And kind of watch how he refers to papers very quickly. And anyway, we'll just try to get into a little bit of it here.
One quick question, though, if you don't mind. So did this just appear, or has this been in his backlog? Or
7 hours ago.
So that 7 hours is literal. Okay.
Yeah.
I was wondering, I wonder how connected it is to Gutsick Gibbons ratting out Bible or creationist errors series that she did part 3 of last night.
Probably was inspired because he takes a good shot at Erica here.
So. I'm thinking that Erica took him down a few sizes, and now he's trying to build his ego and his perceived confidence of his audience back.
Yeah, to use their own phrase, damage control. He has to do damage control. Because, this kid's got nothing. He's a Bible-thumping dingleberry who doesn't know anything about ERVs or anything else. Now, the whole thing with him, with ERVs, is he keeps bringing up the mouse embryonic development, where they found out that an ERV had been adapted to have something to do with mice, and if you knock that particular ERV out, the mice won't, the mouse won't be born. So that's his big claim to fame. And I've downloaded 1, 2, 3, 4 papers that he referenced, and they all talk about ALUs and ERVs, which are just viruses that were planted in the genome a long time ago. And they talk about how they were, if they mutate or if they end up in the promoter region of a gene, they can actually change the transcription of that gene and sometimes affect which protein products are created. So there has been the viruses have been with us for millions and millions of years. And it is expected, and very much a part of neutral theory, that these things would mutate and be adapted, right?
Right, or the line will go out of existence.
Right. Yep. If they do something bad, they will be cut out entirely, right? And if they do something good or something neutral, they'll stick around for a while, and eventually they'll lock into a pathway. And so ERVs and this basically adaptation of ERVs is more proof of evolution. The mechanisms, the many mechanisms that evolve.
That's only, yeah, he's like conflating two things. There's that, and Erica brought this out brilliantly last night in a way that I did not know. In fact, using mice, that there's the functional versus the non-functional genes, and you can actually cut out entire swaths of mouse DNA, and the mice that are born without those sections, they live just fine and pass on the genes, and even those mice that are born to the original mice don't have those sections of non-functional genes, and they do just fine. But that's one thing, functional versus non-functional. But ERV, I've only ever seen it used as proof that, well, that's proof of evolution, because these retroviruses injected themselves into the DNA at one point in the past, and here they are in ancestors, multi-generations, and even in new species later. So it's almost like he's conflating the two, but I would have to see the video to really know for sure if that's what he's doing.
Well, you could use the ERVs or these viruses. You can actually put together phylogenies, because you can see how they develop over time and how they keep increasing in number. And I think I've heard estimates as high as like 50% of our genome is these viruses. And they have found a few of them that actually have a function, which is not surprising, because mutations will in the future have a function. So this is called evolution. And he's claiming, he's making a number of claims. Now, on that bit about knocking out the functional genes in a mouse, SFT's comeback is, oh yeah, well, they survive perfectly fine as long as you keep them indoors and in a cage. But if they were in an environment that was changing, they would need those genes that they knocked out, okay? Which he has no proof for.
Yeah, great experimental thing. He needs to get a bunch of rats and some cages and write up a methodology and just have at it with a control group, of course. And
they have even said something as stupid as this. They've said, oh, if you take that mouse and you put him on the North Pole, he'll freeze to death because he doesn't have the genes to adapt to the North Pole. Well, I think most mice, if you put them right smack on the North Pole, are going to die.
Yeah, I'm going to die. Come on.
Yeah, they've talked about like African dogs who have short hair. If you knock out all their genes and then you put them on the North Pole, they won't be able to grow long hair or some stupid thing like that. But these guys are amazingly, they have all these little planned, canned comebacks, and they have nothing behind them.
But I think it probably soothes their audience that really is afraid to adjust their fundamentalist viewpoints.
Yeah. Yeah, they sound If the preacher sounds convincing, and that's kind of what it is. But let me see if you let me know if you can hear this.
So they look to molecular clocks and
I can
DNA
hear it
function.
fine,
That's
yeah.
why the ALUs you talk about, or the ERVs, for example, the fact that they're highly functional DNA elements. That's certainly.
Okay, so he pops up a little paper on the bottom right away, and I took a look at that paper, and that was the first one. That was Robson. Is it not? Is it Robson? He didn't even tell you. He didn't give you that much, and then he tries to go on and snowball RJ, basically. Topologically associated domains. Sometimes sticking these retroviruses in a loop allows them to fold over and do these 3D rearrangements of the genome, and it will end up having some function. And they found a few of those.
Mm-hmm.
The thing is that for the millions and millions of viruses that they found implanted in the genome, they've only identified functionality for about, I think, 10 of them. And they have identified potential functionality per encode. They found some activity for, I think, about 1,700 of them or something like that, which is exactly what we would expect with evolution, right? Okay. So I'm going to try to get through some timestamps here. So
yeah, I'll try to bite my tongue.
Okay.
Model of, as you love to hear me say, created heterozygosity.
When
How do you
can we
explain that?
expect Adam
I'll
and
ask
Eve's
this one last
genome?
question, then you go back, and then it'll be your turn. How do you
see? That's part of the Gallup. He always does this. He always shuts the other person down when they try to inject with one last question, and that one last question will kind of put a little bit of snow into the equation.
explain the functional roles found in these? I like to call them variation-inducing genetic elements. You'll say they're ancient remnants of viruses and parasites, but how do you explain the function?
What do you mean? How do I explain the function? Which one did you have in mind?
Okay, so if we're looking at, for example, why don't we look at endogenous retroviruses?
Okay.
So we know that they are that they're playing important roles in determining.
You admit they're viruses, right?
Well, I would say I mean, like I said,
Stutter.
I call them variation-inducing genetic elements based on their function.
Yeah, but are they viruses?
Well, I mean, we know that viruses, for the most part, within us are beneficial. We have more viruses than we do bacteria and cells. So
Okay.
the point is,
Now this guy is slick. You see how fast he popped that up?
us are beneficial.
Okay, so RJ is talking about endogenous retroviruses in the genome. So SFT switches over and starts talking about all the viruses that we've discovered in our gut, which had nothing to do with what RJ was talking about. So
Right.
in order to deflect RJ's question, why do they call them viruses? Why do they behave exactly like viruses in our genome? So he deflected the question, but you saw he stuttered. But while he was stuttering, he was going to his resources, and he must have an amazing system to pull things
His
out.
gallery of Gish Gallop.
His gallery of Gish Gallop. That's it.
We have more viruses than we do bacteria and cells. So point is, are they created units of DNA as we would predict? And I would say that
Okay, as we would predict based on what? Based on reading the Bible? Is that science?
Yeah. Thou shalt go virus is not in the Bible.
Nope. So we're at 235.
the evidence does suggest it. Now, you probably looked at the several papers that I had.
Okay, several papers, which he flashes up. Let's see.
Point is, are they created units of DNA as we would predict? And I would say that the evidence does suggest it. Now, you probably looked at the several.
Now, all of these papers, retroviral promoters in human genome, they all, he has this little line, these data suggest ERVs may regulate human transcription on a large scale. Now, that particular paper, I think is the one that says that there are like 1,700 that they found some activity with, right?
Right.
So there's a possibility. Right.
Which is not a problem for evolution.
No, not at all.
So I don't understand his point, and he has no basis for saying our model predicts this.
Right. And in all of the papers that he does reference, I think almost all of them, they do say that this is a mechanism of evolution, and that's one of the reasons they're interested in it. The other reason they're interested in it is after you are born and you develop into a fully functional human being, these same viruses kill you, and if they can really muck up the system. But we have also evolved mechanisms to methylate those epigenetic mechanisms to shut them down. But what they're finding is a lot of them are really active in development, in the development of the organism. And there's a very good reason for that. I don't think I want to get into it too much, but this is how morphological changes, this is how species diverge, basically. And it's just one of many mechanisms that affect the embryo to give different morphology or a different phenotype, a different shape for the organism. Insects, going down to 6 legs from, the arthropods that had a lot of legs, like we were talking about yesterday. But, okay. Any comment?
No, I'm just...
or questions?
Well, yeah, my only comment is I'm just amazed at the way he gishes there. And, you can kind of tell where he's having to scramble to come up with A, verbiage to say, and then B, he must have some good organization, a lot of the tabs open or something with these articles. But
yeah,
but RJ does not seem the least bit phased at all. He's almost amused.
Yeah,
you get that?
Yeah, and RJ kicks his ass in this debate, and even in this video that he shows. But then he tries to switch that around and make it look like I don't know. Anyway, okay, so we're at 2:38. I have a timestamp at 3. I guess I don't know
that I had screen
Not
share.
yet. I don't have the screen up to where I can see what.
Right. So he's popping up another paper.
What those are.
Oh, you didn't see the? Okay, so I had those screen
Well,
shares.
believe it or not, it's very difficult to just copy crap off that I see. Flip.
So what the fuck did he put that picture up there for? What does that imply? RJ's old, and he has to look closely at the screen.
Is that that's not part of the original modern day debate?
Nope. He did an overlay.
Oh, the little trickster.
Yeah, little trickster.
By at 900 miles an hour. You let me ask you this. You had all this information.
Answer the question. I could go on and on with these papers. I'll just read one line and then have you explain it. So this one says ERVs frequently act to distribute regulatory information and thus confer genes with new patterns of expression and function. So for example, would your argument be, okay, these ERVs that have crucial functions in regulating genes, determining cell types, they were co-opted? Like, do you have an original thought of your own, or is you just going to?
Okay, did you see the little ad hom there? They were co-opted. Yes, that's what all the papers say. That's what all the papers talk about.
And original is not a phrase I would use to describe standing for truth.
No, definitely not.
So,
and having an original thought, that would be writing a paper, which of course standing for truth is never done. So
to go with the author's conclusion.
And then they do this. Oh, he really won one there. He said,
I'll go with what.
Are you claiming that they were co-opted? Fuck yeah. That's exactly what we're claiming. And we have and what is our proof? Later on, he asks, do you have a paper that shows empirically an ALU being co-opted? How would you do that? How would you empirically observe the evolution in an organism where mutations happened and some 500 generations later ended up doing something functional?
Right.
I mean, it's not possible.
Remind me what ALU stands for.
What the hell is that? It's it's one of the viruses, and it has a weird origin.
Okay.
They're little tiny jumping genes, basically.
Okay.
And yeah, they have what are they called? They were named after what the place where they found them, and I can never remember the name of it. But
okay, I'll look it up.
But they're jumping genes. they're little viruses that jump around in the genome and embed themselves everywhere. So anyway,
Sort of like the jumping beans that we used to get as kids.
yes, I remember those.
Okay.
Yeah, those things freaked me the hell out. It's like, what the fuck did you bring those home for, Dad? It's like,
what the scientists say on it, it's their field. They're the ones with the PhDs. They're the ones with the actual pedigree.
The ones that wrote the papers.
Are you going to override them because you have a dogma involved?
Okay.
As far as I can, let me ask you a question. As far as I know, all the endogenous retroviruses are called retroviruses because they start out as viruses, not as some originally created design thing. Now, if you want to present a monograph that establishes that the virus quality of them isn't in fact a virus, we look forward to your monograph on that, and don't just try out against it.
I appreciate you saying that. That's why I said the question is, are these really the remnants of ancient viral infections or ancient parasitic infections and invasions, for example, or are they created units of DNA function? This is what I find funny. I'll ask you
viruses can remain kind of neutral too, can't they? I mean, do viruses have to be destructive or make you sick?
No, the viruses in your genome, they just take up space, and they keep reproducing themselves, and they do it even after you're born. You know, there's still it's still going on, and some of them happen in the germline, so they get passed on. So we keep ending up with more and more and more of these viruses.
Yeah, so they can be co-opted viruses that were just there, and even the viruses themselves could have had mutations, right?
Yes. And
okay, so I don't understand SFT's problem with it, other than the fact that it doesn't quite conform with his particular version of young Earth creationism.
Well, they believe that God put those little viruses in there and put them in there, that he copied them in, okay, that he created them. Not that they replicated themselves and ended up being as big as they were, or he believes that God put one in there. I don't know why the hell, if the genome was perfect with Adam and Eve, God would have had to put all the viruses in there, right? Including the ones that had been co-opted. So he would have had to have these long stretches of viruses that do nothing, and then one or two of them that he mutated a little bit to get it to promote a gene. That is what SFT is claiming, that God put those in there and God meant to do that. And RJ makes a few points later on.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay. 420. Yeah. Maybe we can jump ahead here. We're going to have to try to go through this soon.
Okay.
He pops up another paper here, which I downloaded.
Well, why? It's because it depends on the function of these retrotransposons, which evolutionists used to say were non-functional evolutionary leftovers. And
no, we didn't know what their function was. No one said we know that they're non-functional, and there is no such thing as an evolutionist. There are molecular biologists. It's what there are. Anyway.
Supposedly these functions were co-opted. If that's the case, what, were mice just not having kids for millions and millions of years?
What the fuck? Okay, let's play that.
Or mice use suddenly transposons is found in the mouse embryo. Now, if you deactivate it, the mouse embryo will develop, and then suddenly it stops. Well, why? It's because it depends on the function of these retrotransposons, which evolutionists used to say were non-functional evolutionary leftovers, and supposedly these functions were co-opted. If that's the case, what, were mice just not having kids for millions and millions of years?
Okay, so he's trying to say that it took millions and millions of years after the virus copied itself for the co-opted function to occur. And that is just stupid. Do you see what he did there? Okay, so 2 million years ago, the virus, basically reproduced and injected itself. And then it co-opted somewhere along the line to have something to do with this placental implanting, and they found a whole bunch of stuff on that about the development of the placenta at the same time as these mutations were occurring. But now he has kind of like jumped ahead and said, oh, it was suddenly co-opted, a few thousand years ago. It doesn't make any sense what the argument that he's trying to present.
Not surprising.
Yeah, I don't know. Anyway. So that was and then he plays a little cricket thing, like, because RJ is thinking about this just like we thought about it, and it's, you know what, this Bible thumping dingleberry just said a bunch of nonsense,
Right.
and RJ is like, what the fuck did he say?
Yeah, it takes a lot to A, parse nonsense, and B, try to make sure that he's not just saying something scientific in layman's terms, and
Right.
then A, B, and then C, formulate a response to it, and then D, there's a delay in all the speaking, so in the transmission there with the Zoom or whatever they're using, and so yeah, you don't just cricket somebody because there's a lag in the response.
Particularly when you said something nonsensical, because
Yeah.
actually placental development and the co-option of these particular ERVs happened, I think, like 30 million, 40, maybe 60 million years ago, over a period of time where placentas developed. And so he's kind of saying, he's trying to make it sound like this is a new development or something, a new co-opted ERV that just happened in mice. Well, I think they found it in humans and other mammals, so I think it's prevalent everywhere, and it's an old system that developed simultaneously with the placenta. But I would have to look further into that. Yes, I did notice we're talking about the cricket sound. Okay. Because he's trying to figure out
how would you explain that? If these mice need these retrotransposons for development, that's evidence of DNA.
It's the whole point, is that lots of retroviruses, ALUs among others, can take on functionality. The question is, do all of them do that? I have a paper as well that I was just looking up today, infection by porcine endogenous.
That's the question. We found functionality for about 0.001% of these things. And, and they're all over, and SFT just slides right over that.
This retrovirus after islet xenotransplantation in SCID mice, where they were establishing that we need to worry about a lot of pigs as organ donors and others, because there are retroviruses in there that, when transplanted into mice, can take on their old viral functions and do bad shit. Well, it's perfectly understandable that such things.
Wait, slow down. Repeat that last part. What did they do?
Designed?
Well, wait a minute. What did they do? They implanted a virus into the mouse.
They took the elements of the pig and transplanted it into without any modification, and it takes on its old viral function again.
What was the viral function? Something negative?
A lot of viruses. Well, from the virus's point of view, it's all positive. But
right.
And he pops this up. Let's see, human endogenous retroviruses that colonized vertebrate DNA millions of years ago have long been dismissed as, this is a little article that I read, and it was one of these pop pieces that we're talking about, this new research. And of course, pop pieces love to mention junk DNA.
So is The Scientist like a blog, or
I don't know. I've got it up here. It's called Infographic. Is that it? Okay. So The Scientist, exploring life and inspiring innovation. I think it's like a magazine or maybe a blog of some sort. But they have a little well, one thing they let's see. Hang on a second. Share screen. Home tab, infographic. Here it is. So it looks like a legitimate site, but of course, writers tend to stick in shit like junk DNA and try to make it more dramatic. But they show these basically the insertion of these HERVs. I think are the ones that have the effect on the placenta, but I'm pretty sure. So they have the oldest insertions at 100 to 150 million years ago. So the paper he's showing is talking about a lot more than 6,000 years, and it's showing you how these basically that you can get a phylogeny with this development. So most recent HRVK insertion 670,000 years ago. So they've actually been able to look into this, right?
Yeah. And, PBS Eons had a really nice, I think it was PBS Eons, or either that or it's OKW Smart, but they had a pretty good video about ERVs. It's like something about the time the whole world caught a virus or something like that. It's really good.
Now that you mentioned it, we got to go find it, right?
Okay. Is that a requirement here?
It is. It is kind of, yeah.
Okay, I'll go find it. You keep on making observations. I will find it.
Crickets.
Yeah. In other words, go on with the video, and I'll put it in the chat.
Okay, so at let's see here, 6:15. I'll just keep.
But I mean, could you, and you don't have to do it now, do you have any papers, and we don't even have to, it doesn't have to just be ERVs, it could be any class of retro-transpose on any signs, lines, whatever, ALUs. Do you have any paper that actually shows empirically that a non-functional, whether it's an ERV, whatever, went from non-functional to functional? And then I can look at that and see, okay, you know, here's.
Erica said you would bring that up.
But I'm also not a geneticist and not kind of.
Okay, here's where instead of addressing that question or allowing them to answer the question, they go on and they play this Erica clip where Erica says she's not a geneticist, basically. And the point is, Erica is probably not the best source of genetic. And all RJ said is that Erica warned me that you would bring that up. That was it. So, I mean, it's ridiculous. But this is where he asked for a paper showing how something evolved. And we are probably going to end up doing that over the period of the next couple of decades, because we now have genomes, a tremendous amount of data that we can draw from. And over the next 100 years, we're going to be analyzing that data, and we're going to find a great deal of that. So, yes, Danny, I can send you SFT's email. But it's ridiculous to think that, given that we started with the genome projects 20 years ago, that we've kept enough information that we can already find these things. We probably have the data out there. We just have to analyze the data. I mean, we're talking about hundreds of billions and trillions of genomes that we have captured. And this is just a ridiculous request. The way that we know that it happens, because we know mutations happen, we understand protein chemistry, we understand transcription, DNA, all of that, and we can see how new functions can be created. I mean, it's chemistry and physics. It's not magic. You know, we know how this stuff happens. So it's pretty easy to project it. You're just not going to catch it in real time. Something that happens over the course of thousands of years, hard to catch that in real time. So ridiculous request. Go ahead.
He's just trying to reinforce the nonsense of separating operational science versus historical science.
Yeah.
And it doesn't really count. You have to loosen your standards for historical science or something like that.
Yep. So we're at 7. Let's see, where are we at here? Okay, so he played the Erica thing, and then we got something at 8:50. We'll jump ahead a little bit.
And that's why I was excited to have this debate. You asked Adam and Eve, were they created with ERVs, ALUs, and these classes of retrotransposons? And now that I've cornered you on the topic, you're saying you're not prepared. Well, why?
Oh, bullshit. Okay, Adam and Eve, were they created? Okay, that comes from the Bible, you Bible-thumping dingleberry.
Yeah, and it's a story. Come on.
It's a story, Adam and Eve. And so he's saying that they were created with all these viruses, right? That tend to reproduce themselves and kill you. And I think RJ presses back on this at some point.
I will go on at that issue about whether Adam and Eve had them. Do you know anybody, Jensen, Tompkins, Carter, Sanford, who has laid out what the original genomes of Adam and Eve needed to be in order to account for the heterozygosity of the hypothetical Noah and the kids, let alone all of the current ones? It's only 6,000 years. That's not that long ago. That's a relative snap for paleogenomics tinkering with that short of a time frame.
What was your question? I was actually just talking to Jensen the other day about these variation-inducing genetic elements, the ALUs, the ERVs, and I was asking him, how many of these do you think were created initially in Adam and Eve? But the fact is, and he directed me to a paper, a really highly technical paper that I can pass on to you. But the fact that these are all function.
And was that by a creationist or a regular science paper?
No, this one would be from Dr. Nathaniel Jensen. But the function is key. DNA function, molecular clocks. The function I've showed.
Nathaniel Jensen's papers aren't that highly technical. He doesn't do any work.
Yeah, and he didn't publish them.
Well, he's got them on AIG.
That's if I'm to write my opinion about something scientific and put it on a blog, that would be about the same thing. I could say I put it on a science paper. or whatever. But so Jensen, after SFT asked him that question, probably started counting the money in his bank account that he gets paid, so that so without having to do any real science, you know, nobody will fund him to do research on his own predictions and hypotheses.
Yeah. I was just checking chat.
It just must be an easy job to be a scientist for AIG.
Oh yeah, yeah. You just gotta make up some words, and you gotta get your Excel out and do some dumbass spreadsheets on mitochondrial DNA. That's what Jensen does. Let's see here.
He never has to prepare a pipette again.
Nope.
Told you that, well, I mean, for one, if viral DNA is inserted, as you were talking about, at random into the genome, and that's why I asked you if that change in the paper you were talking
And
about,
it is.
it's more likely to disrupt existing genes. I told Conspiracy Cats this. I said if a blindfolded painter, he's going to most likely mess up the painting he is working on just by applying random brushstrokes to it. So these functional roles, there's no paper out there that shows them being co-opted. Therefore, we can safely say that all of these
The reason why I bring up ALUs is that the vast majority of the ALUs that become functional are disease causers.
Okay, of course. I'm really glad you brought that up, actually. So, well, the ALUs are a little bit. That seems to be your expertise. So, you know, we'll stick on that. We'll stick on that there. So these ALU sequences, they're what? They're small repetitive elements representing how much percent of our genome? 10%. 10%. Now they have the ability.
1.4 million of them and counting.
How much?
1.4 million of them and counting.
Okay. Now, because of from the papers I've read, and I've read a few over the last week, and it seems that they always assert, so they'll say in these papers, and once again, I'll pass those to James, they say because of their ability to move around the genome, these jumping genes are considered as real motors of evolution. That's all they say, considered as real motors of evolution when going over the functional roles that they have. Because they talk about how the ALUs can allow cells to adapt to stress, for example, during viral infection. But like you said, they lead to disease. Well, that's what we would expect, James. If they're functional DNA elements and they're mutated, for example, or something negative happens to them, of course they're going to lead to disease. Would you expect it any other way?
Yeah, so when exactly would the first disease-bearing, the reason why most ALUs don't do a damn thing is because they don't have a README code. That's why they're functionally invisible, and that's why they can replicate. That's why there's so many of them. That otherwise we'd be up shit creek. A few fitted into our brain chemistry. That's one of the notable areas where they took on a functionality. But most of the time, they're gumming things up because they're gumming up protein sequences. Now, is it a design defect of the designer to have put in a system that has a copy me signal like that just runs amok? Can we sue?
I would say that copy me signal, those duplications, assist in what I've been saying.
Yeah, why did God use viruses? Why didn't he just put the promoters in front of the fucking gene like he did for all the other genes? Why did he come up with this clever thing where, okay, I'm going to stick in 1 million viruses that do nothing, and then this one I'm going to change a little bit, and it's going to be my promoter, and it's going to look just like a virus.
Yeah, I could see RJ up there at the pearly gates. I want to see your manager. I want to see right now.
Yeah, exactly. Demanding. He would too. He'd probably get booted.
My lawyer will contact you, and he's handing over a card from his lawyer.
Yeah.
In variation, these are variation-inducing genetic elements. Is it reasonable?
Causing diseases.
Of course.
So the designer was okay,
RJ,
with causing diseases.
But DNA repair mechanisms, DNA redundancy, for example, requires forward thinking. And I asked Erica that question: how does natural selection, which sees the short term, not the long term, how does natural selection?
Okay, they say that often. It sees the short term, not the long term.
It doesn't see a damn thing.
No, it doesn't see anything.
Yeah, there's no seeing. It's just some organisms are left with this set of retroviruses or viruses. And it's either going to help them or it's not going to harm them, and it's going to live in the next generation. Is that correct?
Yes. The thing is, in the short term, you're going to see purifying selection. So if you have a mutation that kills the organism, it's just going to wipe it out, right? In the longer term, you're going to see things like population genetics, where genes will fix in a population based on some sort of slow or environmental change. So in the longer term, you're going to see the more of the positive selection. But sometimes I think there is and I would call it a happy accident. There's something that actually actually does a sweep quickly and creates, basically diversity in a population. So that would be a shorter term positive selection. But anyway, there's some complicated genetics involved in that. But let's see, we're almost done. Damn it. And we got 10 minutes left, Scott.
Something like that. Yep.
Okay.
Selection evolve something that requires forward thinking? How does natural selection evolve?
Well, I think we may have an odd idea of what forward thinking applies in this case, and we're kind of far away. You stipulate that no creationist has worked out what Adam and Eve's genome was. Is that correct?
No, actually, I'm going to say so. Dr. John Sanford and Robert Carter are working on it. I think they've actually,
but they haven't done it yet. Is that correct?
Well, it's a work in progress. We understand very little of.
Is that going to be like Chadwick working out the paleo world? Is that a coming attraction that's never going to come?
I do want to answer that question, but I want you to answer this. Is it reasonable for us, RJ, to believe that these so-called ancient viruses and ancient parasites, the ALUs, possess the genetic information necessary to promote so many genetic functions?
So let's pop up a few more papers to make our point here.
For me, it just took a while to realize that he was doing this over the original video.
I think so. Some of them, I think he was doing it over the original video. So he may have popped up some of them during the debate, because RJ did mention that he couldn't see it because it went by too fast. So I'm not sure exactly what he did.
Gotcha.
He does a lot of editing.
Chemical functions in human beings.
I don't accept your supposition. What about ALU do you think is like forward designing?
No. Well, you were saying with the mutations, for example, you're saying is this a DNA error, or is this an error in the design? Yeah, that's what you said. Sorry.
Mm-hmm. So you don't allow errors in design, right?
Well, obviously, if Adam and Eve were created with perfect genomes with pre-existing functional DNA differences,
right. You do not allow imperfection in design in principle. Is that correct?
We see defect. Like, for example, my car coming off the assembly line was near perfect. Now the air conditioner is broken down and rust is building up on the car.
Which means, as I said, you do not conceptually allow for imperfect design in principle. It's a step.
And the point RJ is making here is that why did God use fucking viruses to create promoters? Basically, why do the viruses jump around? I mean, if they were created in Adam and Eve and they were a perfect design, then obviously in Adam and Eve, those viruses would have jumped around, right?
Right.
So how does that make sense? So God created something that actually would have killed Adam and Eve by the time they were 100 years old.
He's trying to defend a silly notion based on a children's story.
Yeah, and he's leaving out a few, it's like when you have a plot hole. I mean, he's got a real bad plot hole here. If they created them in Adam and Eve, then those viruses would have been perfectly capable of replicating themselves in the genome while Adam and Eve were still alive, while their cells were dividing, right?
Mm-hmm.
So this was
like those videos that you get millions of them on YouTube trying to explain away plot holes in their favorite comic book.
Right. He'll probably have an explanation for that, but I can't imagine what it would be. Why didn't God just leave the fucking viruses out of the picture and he would have had Adam and Eve? So I don't think Adam and Eve could have lived past 40 or 100 at the very max years because of these fucking jumping genes that God stuck in there, which SFT has admitted were created. Right? That's his idea. They weren't a virus that invaded our genome. They were created by God because God wanted to do it that way.
They're holy viruses.
Yep. We got 5 minutes. We're close.
Creationists. I don't know of any anti-evolutionists.
But you're familiar with genetic entropy, RJ. We don't have to go down that road.
No, he's going to do that one.
I've said this before, so you're kind of, this is going to be a rabbit trail.
But genetic entropy does not answer my question, the one I just posed.
That's true.
We accumulate 100 new mutations per person per generation. Take that accumulating mutational load back to a point of least mutation accumulation load. That's a point of perfect genetics, Adam and Eve. So
you see that
accumulation.
Yeah, he pops that up with that.
Erica showed that last night.
Isn't that the stupidest shit you've ever seen?
It is.
Well, that's a point of perfect genetics, Adam and Eve. So after the fall, mutations have been introduced into the genetics of people and species, and now these ALUs, these ERVs, if they're subject to mutations, that will result in, of course, disease. But before we end, you asked me, have they worked out the original genomes?
Yeah.
Okay, well, that's why I went over the. Actually, no, I didn't have time with you, but I've asked before. They're looking at, because we know human chromosomes are made up of relatively large linkage blocks, and Dr. Sanford, and you can look at this in the HapMap data. They're looking and analyzing these original text strings, and it shows us that the genome is young. Why?
I'm not sure if I popped that one up. That's ICC, Adam and Eve, design diversity and allele frequency. I think I missed that one. I've got to pull that one down. But anyway, he's okay.
They're looking and analyzing these original text strings, and it shows us that the genome is young. Why? And I'm going to let you respond. Because the genome has only been partially scrambled. When in fact, RJ, crossovers and gene conversions should scramble all linkage blocks quite quickly in an evolutionary.
No. And Dr. Dan has pointed this out. No.
Yeah.
It's just not possible. It happens much more slowly than that. And gene conversion is a mutation that he constantly refers to. But if it were really common, we could not exist at all, basically. So it's a very rare thing. And recombination with linkage blocks, basically there's recombination. There are certain areas that recombine. Those linkage blocks are going to take millions and millions of years to break up if they ever do. So he's lying here through his teeth.
Did he mentioned a number of mutations per year or per generation or something like that?
100 per person, which is
that's way too much, right?
Well, it's somewhere between 30 and 140 or something like that.
Okay.
He picks 100. But the thing is that those mutations, 99% of them drift out immediately or are lost, through genetic drift and whatever. The rest of them are probably, they'll end up creating variation in our population, and not doing anything. Those are neutral mutations, and they end up out there, but they don't cause any harm. There is no such thing as a slightly deleterious mutation. Well, there could be, like if in your metabolism, if a gene mutated so that it was slightly less effective, you would have slower metabolism, but it wouldn't kill you.
Right.
But that's kind of a rare event, sort of. So
Gotcha.
It could also go the other way and make your metabolism a little bit better, and you'd be able to hoist more metal than the other guy sitting next to you. So they have no evidence for any of that shit. But I think this is a creationist article. I'm going to have to download this one too. I'm going to try to link all these articles right after we're done here. But we're almost done.
That's a huge problem for you. Answer that question, and I'll tell you how they're using that data to come up with.
Who says that that's the problem? Is it stuff that Sanford says it's the problem? Or do you have a regular scientist that says it's a problem?
Good question. Regular scientists, and they have explanations for it. Do you know what the explanations are for it?
Oh, well, summarize it, because right off the bat, I guess so. You summarize in the way that you didn't summarize Ventura's paper. Summarize this one for real.
Well, I did summarize the Ventura paper. They say that the sequences have been lost due to deep time dependency did it.
Oh, okay.
As the evolutionists would say, God did it. Okay, well, real quick before we end. So they're looking at those linkage blocks, and since they're still so large, that means there hasn't been much gene conversion and recombination going on. They can actually determine the original chromosome, the original linkage blocks, and they're doing phenomenal work in it. And Dr. Jensen's looking at it through mitochondrial DNA differences, and they're close.
Yeah, they're working on it, and they're close, and they don't have a laboratory. And I think and what we just saw there, I think most likely are Excel spreadsheets where they do these. They have small data sets, and they go ahead and get the numbers they want. But I'm going to go ahead and try to find those last two papers that they popped up and put it out. But we're done. So I mean, this is just, and he calls that a knockout punch. We're working on it. Is his Jensen and Sanford are working on it? Is his knockout punch?
Well, I'm thinking that he saw Erica's video last night, and his little lower lip started quivering because he felt stung a little by all the science.
Yep.
And then he needed something to make him feel better, and produced this particular video. He just needed a win. He needed to be able to put that picture on there of the violence in the ring and somebody falling down unconscious.
Yeah. Yep. Bible thumping dingleberry. I have not seen the Erica video. I have to watch that. But I mean, he's got nothing here. And when you look at what science he actually provided, he provided a couple of little quotes and popped some papers up and highlighted some things to say that some ERVs are functional. And what else has he provided? Nothing. Zero. Other than his rapid style of delivery and his interruptions and over talking. He's a master at debate. But anyway, Raw Matt the Fruit Bat probably put this video together for him. I think he does his production for him. And these guys are capable of. I think they start at 10 o'clock at night and they whip out a video by 12. Then they whip out another one at 3. And I don't know. Most of it isn't really worth responding to. And that's why I haven't responded to too many of these. But as long as he's doing these short ones, maybe we could do a few more of them. But anyway, I will try to get everything lined up for the papers and put in the description. And you guys can figure out how to download the papers. But at least I will have links to all of the stuff that we've seen on the screen. So. Very cool. If you can find that PBS thing. Now, somebody else mentioned.
It's already in the private chat, and I just put it in the public chat. Yeah.
Oh, and here oh, my goodness. Here's a link to that. Oh, partially. Okay. The pandemic that lasted 15 million years. Okay.
Yep.
Hang on a second. Let me open that one up.
It was a very fine video with excellent quality. PBS always puts out excellent production values.
Okay, and you put it in public chat too?
Yes, twice.
Okay. And I'll put it in the description. So I'll get all that stuff done. But good, we actually did it. We did it. I know, man. 40 minutes?
Yeah, these ad hoc or impromptu, that's the word, impromptu videos can be pretty fun.
Right. By the way, we're over 300 subs, 309.
Well, congratulations.
Yeah, actually went up 15% yesterday, and I don't know why that is. Somebody's plugging me out there, and I don't know who that is. Is that you, Brainbug? I don't know.
Brainbug. I don't know
who's doing it. Anyway,
it's Brainbug's artwork in our introduction. Thank you so much, Brainbug.
Yeah, if anybody, I think we're going to end this. Keep it a short video. But if anybody wants to come in and talk to me backstage, there's a link, and I'll be hanging around for a little while, but I think Scott has to get to work. I found out it was Tuesday. I thought it was Sunday.
I've had a few days like that. I woke up last Thursday and thought it was Friday, and I was just so happy for like 2.5, 3 hours, got all my Friday trash out to the street, and then realized it was Thursday still.
Okay. Okay, so we're going to end the broadcast right now, and we can talk backstage, okay?
All righty. Okay.
So goodbye, cruel world. Goodbye, boys and girls. And thank you, whoever in the hell has subscribed in the last, well, all of you subscribers. Thank you. I appreciate it. I'm getting there. SFT said I wasn't going to get never get 100 subs.